Alright, so we're going to do one of these DMG Game Boys. I've got both of my broken Game Boys out, so both of these have broken screens. The only thing you need to solder is the speaker. The replacement kit doesn't come with the speaker, so this is your front PCB board. This is where normally your contrast wheel is. This now becomes your brightness wheel, and you push it in to change the color. And again, this has the contacts for the buttons because the original front panel or PCB board has that as well. So yeah, this one's pretty yellow case, pretty yellow case, and this one has the back half of a green replacement case. I ended up not using. I used the front half of the green case, but this had some stripped out holes, as with these aftermarket cases. These early aftermarket cases were not built nearly as well as the real case, and you have to be really careful with stripping out screws. Not that you shouldn't be careful with these, but these are definitely a higher quality. So I'm going to turn on the soldering iron and get that going. I don't know which one to do first. I'll just do the black one first, I guess. So again, this has the buttons and the membranes in the replacement case, and the battery contacts are already in there. So, sort of trying to figure out how this is going to work. I've seen this done before, but obviously a bit of a learning curve here. So this has the screen in it. Let's just get this out. So there's the replacement LCD screen. It does have some protective tape on there. I'll leave that on for now, but it definitely has to come off before the screen goes into the case. This is the driver board I was talking about. This is converting the way that the video signals from the original DMG motherboard spoke to the LCD. It's completely different. You had multiple ribbons. I'm assuming it was working in some sort of a matrixed. Almost you have one signal line per line of resolution, it seems. Modern LCDs, at least externally, don't work like that. This is your ribbon going to the LCD. There's obviously not nearly as many pin connectors on there as there is horizontal and vertical lines on a DMG screen. So again, this is converting normally how a DMG speaks to its ancient LCD to how it's going to have to talk to a modern LCD. So there's quite a bit going on there. That's really the magic behind this kit being possible. Again, the speaker's the only thing we have to solder. So just soldered the speaker. Pretty simple. There's just two wires. There are holes on that board. It's not just a pad, so you can put the wire right through the hole and then just put a little extra solder on the pad. As far as mounting the screen, I think it's supposed to go with the ribbon, like when you're looking in the back of the case through the front, the ribbon should be in the top left. I think in the older versions of the kit, the ribbon was at the bottom right. But again, this is the V3. Pretty much have to take the plastic off already, because once you get this in there, you can't take it off. So that is just going to go in there like so. Okay. Now this bracket does just go over these two bottom, the more shallow posts of the two. And basically, if I can get this lined up, there we go. There we go. So that just holds the screen in place. The screen cannot move left to right or up and down. Well, there's a little bit of wiggle up and down. But realistically, that's just centering the screen in there. There's a little cutout here. That's because it would interfere with the D-pad here if it weren't cut out. So that's kind of how I figured that goes in like that. So from what it looks like, that's in there like that. This little driver board is going to sit in there like so, right about there. This little ribbon's going to fold over and connect to that. This ribbon's got to fold over and it's going to connect to the other board. They included some double-sided tape, so I assume that's to hold this in place. So I'll see about doing that, and I'll see about getting this connected. So yeah, that ribbon did fold over and basically clicked right into place onto there. I did it off camera. I was a little bit paranoid, to be honest, but actually it just clicks pretty much right into place. So yeah, I'm going to tape this board down. Actually, I think before I tape that down, I'm going to get this ready so that I can test it and I can make sure the screen's in there properly and working before I tape the board to the back of the screen. So let's get the motherboard out of this. Oh, there's no screws holding it in. Usually there's a few screws holding this in. It looks like this is just sitting in there. And then that's going to go in here. Actually, just like so. Alright, so we should have a couple screws holding this board in and a couple of screws holding this little headphone jack board in. So I'm going to get those screws put in. Yeah, don't forget to put the power switch in before you screw this board in. There we go. Power switch in, and then we can screw the board in. Being very careful not to over tighten. It seems like the threads are a little bit stronger on this one, so I think you're less likely to strip them. But still be careful. Don't use too much torque or force to get those screws in. So now that that's together, I can basically pop batteries in this, and that'll let me test the progress as we're going along here. There we go. Batteries and a game. Certainly wouldn't hurt to have a game ready. If we're getting ready to test, we're getting ready to put this board in, I might as well put the buttons in. I guess I'm just going to use the buttons it came with. They're clear, as the case is clear. They're slightly transparent. Although I might put the red buttons in there. I think the red buttons would look good with the black. Let me grab a pair of red buttons. Yeah, the red buttons seem to fit in there just fine. Again, the fit and finish on this is great. With those aftermarket cases, if you used aftermarket buttons versus real buttons, there was slight tolerance differences, and sometimes the buttons would get too tight or sometimes they would get too loose. I've actually seen them get so tight that I had to remount the holes in the aftermarket case to make the buttons work. These seem to fit just fine, and I think the red buttons will give a little bit of splash on otherwise what's an all-black Game Boy. So I'm going to put the red buttons in there. As for the membranes, again, this came with its own membranes, so I might as well just use those. I'm also using the screws it included. It included all the screws you needed. So sometimes with the aftermarket cases, you might want to use the screws that they come with, because I thought that was the start and select button for a second. It was the membranes for the A and B buttons. That's the membrane for the A and B buttons there. So that only goes in one way, I think. Alright. Kind of can't really tell how it's going to feel until it comes all together. but at least we got those in there. So basically, where's the board I soldered the speaker to? So basically, the speaker's going to go in there with the board. This ribbon is going to connect to here, and then that's the front assembly done. Now, your main ribbon is this one, which is going to connect from the front half to the back half. So this is the equivalent of this on a stock Game Boy. Now, on a stock Game Boy, that's soldered to this board. It's not detachable on both sides, but that doesn't really make a difference. This is going to have to get pushed into this connector, and then that is going to push into the opposite end on there. Okay, so you do have to bend this sort of upwards because it's got to bend back around into here. So I'm going to do that off camera. Again, I'm a little paranoid doing this. It's actually pretty easy so far. It's easier than I was expecting, and I already knew that it was going to be pretty easy. So I got to say, this is pretty easy and straightforward so far. I was a little confused with which way the screen goes in, because again, I think on the older versions it went in the other way. Again, it's pretty simple, but I'm going to take my time and make sure I don't screw anything up. Alright, so this seems to drop in very nicely. Another thing with these aftermarket cases, like they're not even pre-cut. These were made from the ground up to fit the IPS screen in there without having to cut anything out. And I believe the same is true with the contrast wheel. Normally on a stock case, you would have to grind a little bit, or file a little bit of plastic out where this contrast wheel is, because this contrast wheel is a little bit thicker than the stock contrast wheel. Again, this is now the brightness wheel, and it's our color change button kind of in one. But again, this dropped right into place. The speaker dropped right into place. I've got that ribbon bent underneath here, and then that's going to sort of fold over and bend again, and then it's going to go into here. This should lift up. Very little force should be required to get this into there, and then you'll push that down and lock it down, of course. It's really here where a lot of force is going to be required, so we'll get there when we get there. There we go. That's locked down in there. I actually went ahead and taped the board down, as this seems to be going pretty straightforward, and so I don't think I should have to take that out again. I just tightened 2 screws in there to see how the button feel is. Feels like it's going to be pretty good. Definitely better than aftermarket cases I've used in the past. The buttons aren't sunk in any further than they should be. And yeah, we've already got a fingerprint on the screen. I'll have to clean that up before we put the cover on. But again, not much you can do about that. You have to take the clear plastic off pretty early in this process. So yeah, the only thing left, I believe, is this ribbon from front half to back half. And let's see. I believe it goes with the blue side up, but I'm going to have to double check that. Yeah, so on both sides, it's blue side up, like blue side up from the circuit board, and it's like that on both sides. So this one's going to go in like that, and then that's going to fold over again. See how that lines up with that? Yes, okay, yeah. So, I don't know what side to put it in first. Does it really matter? Put it in this side first because I think, wait, on a stock Game Boy, no, on a stock Game Boy it's permanently attached to this side, so I'll put this one in first. I don't think it really matters. The issue with this is it does require a lot of force to get this in, and you don't want to use too much force, but you kind of need to use a fair bit of force to get that squeezed in there. And oh, here we go. That's a little sketchy, but that seems to be in there. I'm going to make sure both sides are pushed in there equally. Kind of goes like one side and then the other. That looks pretty even in there now. So again, this is going to fold over because that's going to go in like that on this side. So I'll put a little bit of a bend in it, but not too much. I'll kind of let it just fold over as it closes, I think. This is going to be the tricky part. I might have to do this off camera. Whew. Okay, that was that was kind of awkward. It does require a fair bit of force again to push that in, and you're kind of working within the confines here. That should be it. Let's turn this thing on. Oh, I sweated on the screen. I do have to clean the screen off. Don't worry about that. This looks amazing. We'll get the lights down and we'll take a look at it, but brightness, we can change the color. My camera's overexposing that. Get it to focus on that, maybe. Oh. Yeah, that looks so good. My camera's not doing it justice, but again, we'll get the screen cleaned up, we'll get the cover put on, get it put back together, and then I'll adjust the lighting in here a little bit and lock the camera in focus. I mean, I knew it was going to look amazing. Again, I've watched a few videos on these. So we just kind of squeeze it back together and force that ribbon to sort of bend on itself. But yeah, we'll get it back together, we'll get the screen cleaned up. Alright, so one final step. Put this screen cover on. I'll clean the screen. Some 3M tape already pre-applied to that. Yeah. Except that doesn't want to come off quite so easily. There we go. Of course, the center part wanted to stay with it. Whatever. I get that. Why is there even... There we go. Okay, make sure there's no residue in the screen section. Looks good. Alrighty. Oh, nice. Oh, nice. It's nice and flush. It doesn't stick out as far. I don't know if that's because of the case. If the screen protector area is a little more recessed in there. But I've used tempered glass covers before, and there was quite a lip, as the tempered glass screen cover's thicker than the plastic stock ones. Ooh hoo hoo. Nice. Alrighty, let's get the lights turned off and the camera readjusted. Alright, I got the focus and the exposure locked. So this should look pretty darn good. Oh man, this looks so good. And you know, relatively speaking, it was a very easy install, especially with that bracket. I didn't have to fiddle with, you know, making sure the screen was lined up properly or anything. Let's go through the colors. Red, yellow, purple, gray, yellow, blue, back to green. So one of these, I guess that's just like your black and white. And the cool thing I noticed is if you turn the system off and back on again, it's on the black and white mode. But if I change it to green, which my two favorites are the black and white and the green mode, if I change it to the green and turn it off, oh, I take that back. You know what though? It did it last time. Let's try that again. We're on the green. Maybe it's got to be on there long enough. Okay. Let me refocus that. Let me get as close as I can get. I don't know how... Probably that's about as close as my phone is going to focus. That is like... It's just pixel perfect. Like, wow. There's no like odd scaling going on. It's every 4 pixels on the LCD is one stock Game Boy pixel of resolution. So it's 4:1 on the horizontal, or 2:1 on the horizontal, and 2:1 on the vertical. So yeah, every pixel of the original Game Boy resolution is 4 pixels on the screen. So yeah, let's turn that off. And wait a minute. Turn it back on again. Yeah, it's on the green again. It looked white because the camera... Is that what happened last time? I'm looking at the camera, and the camera looked white because it's so bright. Like when you first turn it on, it's so bright that it looked white on the camera. Yeah, see, it's green. Yeah, so it seems to have a memory of which one you had on last, which I like because I'm mostly probably going to leave it on the green. Oh, and again, brightness, so we can turn it down. Oh, it goes really dim. You can still see that in the camera, though. Yeah. It doesn't go off, but it just goes pretty darn dim. The wheel is not super responsive. Doesn't seem to catch. I don't know if I'm going too fast or too slow. I guess that's brightness all the way up now. Let me get back to here. Yeah, so it looks like that's brightness all the way up. Yeah, okay, here we go. Doesn't seem to want to go up very fast. It's a little concerning. Honestly, I'd probably just leave it on full brightness anyways. So, not a big deal. I don't think the battery life on this is any worse than if you had a backlight mod. In fact, it might actually be a little bit better. But man, that looks good. Wow. Definitely worth it. I mean, I took a broken Game Boy with a broken screen and the only thing I used was the motherboard and the speaker. I even used all the screws that came with the kit, which, by the way, they were all Phillips. It didn't have any tri-wing. So this thing's completely held together with Phillips screws. And yeah, the fit and finish on this case is definitely better than cases I've used previously. Yeah, there's like no flex when I squeeze on it, even on the back where the battery is. In fact, even on a stock Game Boy, there's a little bit of flex when you squeeze on it, and especially on the battery cover. So this is actually very, very solid, very well built. Again, it was already fit for the larger brightness wheel. It was already fit for the IPS screen to drop in. Having used that bracket to align it, this was actually very simple. I just noticed there's no cover. I should take a look for that. Was there not a cover included with these? Maybe not. I don't think these come with the COM port cover. That's a bit of a bummer. They could have had color matched link cable or whatever COM port covers. But it came with the power switch, it came with all the buttons, it came with the membranes, it came with the glass screen protector. Again, this is called the Prestige case. If you're looking for it on the Handheld Legend website, they still sell the cheaper cases. Off the top of my head, these are like 10 or 12 bucks. These are like 18 or 19. But again, this one doesn't come with the membranes, and it doesn't come with the tempered glass screen cover. So this case really isn't any more expensive, and it's definitely a lot more well built than the other aftermarket ones. I kind of like the fact it's transparent. At night, I would assume you would see some of the glow from the backlight through this transparent case. I wasn't sure if this was going to light up, but I guess they kept it's blacked. The LCD screen is a widescreen, and it's in there like this, right? And so again, that customized scaler board is taking the video signal, and it's rotating it. So like it's a widescreen. It should be like this, but it's fitting it in there. And so that allowed them to use a modern screen that's easy to source and use that in here. But it's a pixel perfect match. 2 times scaling on the horizontal, 2 times scaling on the vertical. It's not an odd scaling. So it just looks great. I've blabbed on enough about that. The install was fairly easy. Very easy, actually. Considering that's a screen replacement, and not even a screen replacement, that is a screen upgrade from an ancient 1989 non-backlit to a modern IPS that requires completely different signaling and scaling and rotation to make that work. Considering what this is, that is as easy as you could imagine. Again, the only thing I had to solder was the speaker. Super simple install. I knew it was going to be easy going in. I've watched reviews and installs on this before. I was still a little sketchy. It's delicate electronics, the delicate ribbons. Some of the instructions aren't the clearest. That's maybe one thing, is they could upgrade the instructions. The instructions, the official instructions, if you just click the link on the the Handheld Legend website, is still for like the version 1 or the version 2. So it's slightly different looking than the V3, and you know, for this kind of stuff, I wish the instructions were just as clear as possible. And a lot of the brackets look different, so a lot of those alignment brackets do look different. So yeah, the instructions, you know, aren't super clear, but I guess they're clear enough for most people. And again, this is fairly simple, fairly straightforward. Very simple considering what you're doing, and the results are amazing. I took a broken Game Boy with a broken screen, and now I've got one that works better than they ever did. To me, this, you know what? My buddy just bought the Analog Pocket, and he laughed at me at how much I paid for this screen, but it's not nearly as expensive as the Analog Pocket. Now, granted, the Analog Pocket plays Game Boy Color games, and it can also play Game Gear games, but if you just mainly like the older Game Boy games, and you like the DMG, this, in my opinion, is better than the Analog Pocket. This is a better solution than the Analog Pocket. I like the feel of the DMG. I like the bigger size of it in my hands. These buttons feel absolutely perfect, considering this is a replacement case and a replacement PCB board where the buttons actually make contact with. These buttons feel like a brand new Game Boy. That's awesome. This is just amazing. Definitely recommended. Again, I paid quite a lot for this, but I paid $40 US in shipping, and I paid $57 Canadian in duty fees importing this stuff across the border. So this ended up costing me quite a bit, but still way cheaper than an analog. Still way cheaper than an Analog Pocket. If you've got a DMG sitting around you want to upgrade, if you've got a DMG with a broken screen, this is allowing you to fix something that otherwise was trash. Really, it's definitely 2 thumbs up. I can't wait to do the other one now.